I think when we talk about ghosts haunting a place, I think in the majority of cases they are people who have loved a building or loved a place so much that when they pass over they tend to come back. And as far as the Drury Lane ghosts are concerned, most of them are actors and actresses. They come back because they love the theatre. Up in the Grand Circle Saloon, or just off, in a room there, we have a bust of Dan Leno. And Dan Leno was a very famous music hall comedian at the turn of the century. And he was particularly clever in playing the parts of dames in British pantomime. He would play Widow Twankey in Aladdin, or with his partner, he would play one of the ugly sisters in Cinderella. And that bust has been in that room for many years. But there was a time when firemen here were complaining that Dan Leno was kicking up a bit of a fuss. And what I did, apparently, was to move him from the boardroom, as we call it, to the rotunda. And having moved it, he didn't like it at all. And he kicked up such a fuss, apparently, spiritually, that it finished up with a letter from one of my directors to say, put Dan Leno back in the boardroom before we have any more trouble. The story is given to us by spiritualists that if one runs into the Ghost of Drury Lane, who is known commonly as the man in grey, you should say to him, "What ails thee, friend Arnold?" And he will go on his way. This leads us to believe that this famous Ghost of Drury Lane was an actor who was here and known to us many, many years ago as Arnold Woodruff. And very often he is seen walking around the back rail of the upper circle in the auditorium. And if he is seen at the opening of a new production, it's a very good omen. It's a sure sign that we're going to have a very big success on our hands. And very often when I was sitting in my office of an afternoon perhaps, I would hear a knock on the door. And I would say, "Come in," and of course nobody came in. I'd go to the door, there wasn't a soul there. As a youngster, I suffered a bit with my chest, and my mother was a firm believer in spiritualism. For cures, she took me to a spiritualist, and this woman went into a trance behind me, and she did all the paraphernalia movements down my back, and then she told my mother that this boy is going to very high places. He's going to be in big buildings with lots of people and lots of lights. I have a general love of the theatre. That was one of the reasons why I ran away from home. I went and stayed with an uncle who was in the cinema. I was a young fellow in what we call the operating box. I think in America you call it the projection booth. My job was to rewind the films. I came here in 1956. My first big show here was My Fair Lady. And it was a great experience, I can tell you that for myself, as a manager of the theatre. A great experience. Really, it is the glitter and the glow of theatre, meeting different people over the years, people, music hall artists, famous actors and actresses, which must have attracted me very much. After all, I am a March-born Pisces, and if you look up my stars, you'll find that we are attracted to the theatre very much. So I always say that part of my theatre experience is because I was born into it and I followed my stars very closely. In Drury Lane I have actually been working now for 30 odd years now. Some of my friends, when they see me walking around with a party of people, oh, they say, "There's old George, he's still at it, he's still at it." That is because I've turned 80 years of age. But I am quite sure that when my time comes, I'm quite sure I shall be coming around here from time to time just to make sure everybody's running the place properly. Dog in the manger, they call it. Dog in the manger. I won't let it alone.